All right, so the topic of today's presentation is information and how to better position your organization to leverage this important asset. So we're going to focus on three critical areas, and there's going to be plenty of time for questions at the end. My colleague Bob Hoover is not able to join us today, so you have me. My name's Philip King, and I'm a senior manager of data architecture, analytics, and insights with Change Healthcare Consulting. I've been delivering data solutions for almost 30 years as a consultant and as an employee for large and small companies in a variety of domains, including healthcare. I've helped many organizations use information technology capabilities to provide value to their organizations. Health plans customize their products for the unique needs of their members. Securing information and providing the right access to the right data at the right time is a huge challenge. Ensuring the quality of the information is crucial for both members and providers. And as mentioned in several sessions yesterday, managing cost is an ongoing struggle in healthcare to provide quality services with reasonable prices. As member populations have grown and technology has evolved, the volume, the variety, the velocity of information has grown exponentially. And the value of information has become more important for healthcare executives, and their increased investment in harnessing that information to gain insights from past and future decisions has led to the adoption of data warehouses as a core system for every plan. But healthcare technology, processes, and regulations continue to change, and plans continue to seek innovative systems to maximize the value of their information. So this diagram should look familiar to you, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time reviewing the slide, but the point I wanted to get across here is the number of information systems involved in operating a health plan and how the configuration of the systems has standardized over time. So it should look pretty familiar to all of you. So while the systems themselves have become standardized, the information within these systems continues to present several challenges, including fragmentation, changing terminology, timing, integration, and proliferation. So to address these challenges, executives continue to enhance their information knowledge and their vocabulary. So EDW, ETL, big data, analytics, machine learning, all of these started as concepts, have become reality, and are now considered to be commodities in today's information landscape. And while there's been a lot of change around information assets, none of it would be possible without people who create the change, the process that defines how the change is delivered, and the technology that enables that change. Successful information management programs must align with company goals, company drivers, and they have to enable business decisions. And successful technology solutions are guided by principles that provide many advantages, including efficiency, quality, communication, alignment, resiliency, extensibility. But many organizations fall short because of a lack of these principles of governance, standardization, and democratization. So let's take a look at these three principles in detail. So this is another diagram that should be familiar to you. And really what it's here for is to demonstrate why we need governance and why we need standards. Most industry domains, including healthcare, are very complex and involve the transfer of information among various systems. And in the healthcare domain, different types of organizations need to load data from external sources, need to transfer that data among internal systems, and need to send that data to external targets. So without governance and standardization, this chaos can lead to inefficiency, instability, data silos, security risks, delivery delays. So what are we going to do? Governance to the rescue, right? Governance addresses the challenges with the complexity of data transfer among internal and external systems. And as organizations grow, data governance programs evolve into formal processes to implement control over the data, as seen in this graphic on the left. And here I'd like to call out that data governance board and the data stewards in that program. For a data governance program to be successful, the selection of those team members who fill these roles is extremely important. The board members need to have the authority to make decisions, and the data stewards have to be subject matter experts within the business units. And I've often seen, instead of business staff, IT staff in these data steward positions, and also on the data governance board. And they've rarely had the business knowledge and the authority to be successful in those roles. The organizations that I've seen succeed in data governance programs don't rely on IT, but instead leverage business leaders to drive these initiatives. But governance isn't a new concept. It's been used for decades. What's new is the emphasis on leveraging the ever-increasing sources of data. And through the years, the Data Management Association International, or DAMA, which you can see their logo on the top left here, has been one of the most popular resources for data governance and best practices. And they have a data management book of knowledge that provides very useful templates for data governance teams. That graphic on the bottom right there is DAMA's data governance guidelines. And so let's dive into one of the most important levers of a successful governance program. Standardization, along with governance, leads to better quality and increased confidence within an organization by defining terms and definitions. And one of the biggest challenges I often face is simply gaining consensus among the business units for those terms and definitions. And one way to remove that barrier is to leverage industry standards, like those created by government and standards organizations. And during the delivery of my governance solutions, I leverage many techniques to implement data standards, including data dictionaries to provide aligned definitions, reference data to translate codes or provide verbose descriptions of those codes, and master data to provide all systems that have data that has been defined and assessed, cleansed, and is controlled. So now that we understand the importance of governance and standardization and some of the techniques for enabling these principles, what's next? Democratization, it's a relatively new buzzword, is the process of making information available to business units without dependencies on technology teams. So it empowers leadership with information that will help them meet their goals through effective use of data. And democratization leads to an increase in an organization's information maturity and leverages governed and standardized data. And this ultimately leads to an increase in data literacy, which means an organization not only knows what data it has, but also knows how to leverage that data to gain a competitive advantage. So let's take a look at some examples now of these three principles in action. So this is an example of how I recently leveraged standards, governance, and democratization to align association data across several disparate plans. And the plans were in different geographic locations, and they had developed data definitions that were very specific to their needs because of varied regulations, demographics, and so on. So they also leveraged various technologies to deliver the information. So it's very unstandard across all the plans. And of course, these challenges led to several data issues and a lack of trust in the quality of the data. So to address these challenges, we started by forming a committee and standardized the definitions of the data. And this committee also created an inventory of the critical reports. And next, a team of data specialists was created to provide information delivery services with control over the data that was available. And these specialists built a data quality process that measured the data values against configurable tolerances and generated alerts when the data did not meet expectations. And lastly, a partner was selected to help provide analytics services and to leverage the data in innovative ways. And the results were increased alignment, better efficiency, and higher quality, and also decreased time to market and lower overall cost. So let's take a look at some more examples. And before we do, the remaining examples that I included in this presentation are not healthcare examples, but they still serve as really good examples of data governance challenges and some approaches that I've used to resolve them. And this example is from a financial organization I worked with prior to joining Change Healthcare. And the issue that needed to be solved was a conflict between IT and the business unit executives regarding the location, where should calculations be performed during the flow of data as it flowed through all the various processes and technical platforms. And I served as a moderator to capture all the suggestions that were being offered by all the parties involved and provided a final recommendation that helped ultimately facilitate an agreement. And I formatted my recommendation, you can see here, as a decision tree to try to make this process as simple as possible. So that's one example. Let's take a look at another one. So here's one from a telecommunications client of mine. And in this case, reports were being delivered to operational teams who depended on the information to plan their team's daily goals. And as the volume of data had grown over time and the availability of the data was delayed, and eventually the value of that information was drastically decreased and almost unusable. And as the data changed over time, the quality of the information was also reduced, and the users no longer trusted what was being delivered, even if it was being delivered on time. So to address these issues, I met with the operations teams within the business units to gain a better understanding of how they were using the information. And I also met with the technology teams to get a better understanding of the challenges that they faced in processing the large volumes of data and delivering the information on time. And I facilitated joint sessions where we all negotiated reasonable expectations for what we were going to deliver and when. And I also developed a new team that monitored the information delivery time and also measured the quality of the information. And the team also managed all of the issues that were found for all the cross-functional teams and communicated the status of those issues through a dashboard. And that provided transparency for the operations teams, to understand the reasons for the data quality issues and the status of the resolutions to those issues. So as a result, operations teams received information when they needed it, and they could monitor the status of quality issues. And in summary, the overall strategy that we created leveraged governance to establish and monitor service level agreements, standards for communicating issues and solutions, and democratization to provide the data in a timely manner. So let's look at one more. So this is an example that a project with a hospitality client. And the initial objective of this engagement was to resolve a data breach. They had a legacy CRM system that had been developed in FoxPro. And for those of you who know, FoxPro had not been supported for many years. And that resulted in security vulnerabilities. So to resolve it, a new CRM system was developed using cloud technologies and enhanced security techniques. And while that system was being developed, we also resolved issues with the quality of the CRM data and improved their matching and merging process. And as that project was winding down, another project was started to develop a data strategy across the entire enterprise. And this was a company where there were many properties. They were all independently owned properties, and their systems had become non-standard. You know, the owners of the properties could decide what software products to purchase. So there was no real enterprise standard. And that ultimately resulted in higher overall costs and increased security concerns within the enterprise. So what I did is I met with the technical teams of each property and captured their system inventory. So you can imagine 50 properties all using different systems. And the CIO, ultimately, this diagram that I created that shows all the systems in vertical bars, she loved it. She ultimately called it her bookshelf and used it in her presentations. And I grouped all the systems, as you can see, by business function. I used colors and icons that helped to identify security concerns. And this served as a baseline for further discussions with enterprise IT executives to develop their full enterprise data strategy. And from that strategy, one of the first initiatives that we started was the migration of all properties to one property management system, which was a huge effort for 50 properties. I served on that project as a data architect and designed all the data migration, data integration, and security solutions for data. And in summary, the overall strategy leveraged governance to identify opportunities for information management improvements, standards to align all properties to maximize technology investments, and democratization to provide relevant data in a timely manner. So again, this isn't a healthcare example, but can be used to provide guidance for healthcare companies in their quest to maximize the value of analytics investments. So that's the end of the presentation. Anybody have any questions?
You'll just wait for the microphone.
Oh, sure. Oh, you're going to hold it? Okay. To what extent are you marrying your systems analytics to the standardization of processes within those different locations? Because I think if the processes aren't standardized, there's probably different data being produced by these systems. Is that something that you usually marry together when you're doing a project?
Yeah, and I think you're referring to the healthcare example, or is it all examples?
Yeah, I think it bled in all of them. I think healthcare and then into the hospitality, but specifically in healthcare.
Yeah, and I see your point because varying regulations, varying teams, varying levels of knowledge. It's a blend. There is no right or wrong answer to that. Where we can standardize systems and processes themselves, we do. And most systems these days are very configurable. So you can use the same system with multiple properties, but configure it to operate differently in different locales. And so the system, for the hospitality example, is probably the most complex example that I've worked in. They did choose a system that was one of the most well-known systems in the industry. So it was a very large company that sold the product, and the product was extremely mature. So it had it was very configurable, and it was marketed itself as a global solution. So it tailored the product to each regional location. And if they had a client who was in a location that they didn't currently support, they would immediately enable support for that location within their product. So we were helping that large company that sold this software product to, many customers around the globe. We were helping them develop their product by giving them business in locations that they didn't previously do business in. And so then they would, create a team that would investigate the laws and the regulations within that location, and investigate, the security challenges within that one geographic location, because they do vary from region to region, the security challenges. So, you still can standardize with systems because they are typically very configurable. All right. Well, thank you very much.